fact that they said that I set him up.
Okay.
I did not set him up. That James Bond, that's what I call setting up. I don't know. You know.
My mom wants Todd to be doing something wrong bad that anything that anybody says about him, she's going to be like excited to hear about it.
Y'all, she exposed everything. From the glitzy surface of celebrity life to the darkest, hidden corridors of Kandi Burruss' personal empire, nothing was left untouched. As Jaguar Wright leaned into the camera, the internet didn't just pause, it stopped. Every fan, every viewer, every scroll-happy onlooker froze, because what was coming wasn't commentary. It wasn't entertainment. It was an execution. The lines she delivered weren't jokes, they were indictments. Every word dissected Kandi's carefully curated persona, unraveling the polished veneer layer by layer, exposing a reality that fans never imagined. In those first moments, Jaguar tore through the myths surrounding Kandi's career, her YouTube presence, and her Patreon strategy, framing them not as growth, but as desperate survival tactics. What looked like content was revealed as control, monetization, and manipulation. Then came the marriage revelations, clips of Kandi casually discussing intimate moments, not as private memories, but as structured, consumable content for the public eye. And Todd Tucker? Emotionally absent, functionally detached, trapped in a marriage that had already begun to dissolve silently. The bombshell didn't stop there. Jaguar revealed a third presence, a woman moving through the marriage, fully integrated, more than a mere side story. And just when viewers thought the shock couldn't escalate, Jaguar exposed Riley and Mama Joyce's ruthless, opportunistic roles, Riley viewing Todd and Kayla as enemies, Mama Joyce branding Todd a gold digger before the wedding, and forcing prenup pressures while Kandi allowed interference to maintain control. Fans weren't just watching gossip. They were witnessing a dismantling of a celebrity marriage, a calculated exposure of trust, intimacy, and identity being weaponized. The stream didn't entertain, it indicted, it warned, and it left the audience
Has had things to say about Todd since the beginning, and I'm not going to be as patient or as passive as he is. Mom has had things to say about Todd since the beginning. He's been putting up with it all these.
The internet froze the second Jaguar Wright's live stream went live. Eyes glued to screens, fans and casual viewers alike felt a sudden chill. This wasn't just another celebrity rant. This was an execution, a full-scale dismantling of Kandi Burruss' public persona and private life. Jaguar leaned into the camera with a presence that demanded attention. Every word she spoke hit with precision, stripping away the polished surface of Kandi's career, revealing the raw machinery behind the fame. The energy was electric, almost unbearable, as the audience realized that what they were witnessing wasn't entertainment, it was revelation. Jaguar didn't start slowly. She began by examining Kandi's career trajectory, dissecting her shift from television to YouTube and Patreon. This wasn't growth or evolution. This was survival. Jaguar framed Kandi's online ventures as calculated moves, desperate attempts to monetize every fragment of her life while keeping her relevance alive. Fans watched in disbelief as Jaguar explained how Kandi's public persona had become a currency, how every clip, every smile, every laugh was strategically deployed to maintain control over her image. This was not entertainment, it was calculation masked as content. Then came the marriage revelations. Jaguar played clips where Kandi discussed intimate aspects of her life and her bedroom with an ease that stunned viewers. It wasn't playful gossip, it was a confession, a quiet revelation that private life had been transformed into consumable content. Jaguar highlighted how Todd Tucker, while physically present, was emotionally and functionally detached, trapped inside a marriage being reconstructed in public. Every gesture, every hesitation, every moment of silence Todd displayed was analyzed, showing a man already stepping away emotionally from the life he was supposed to share. Fans began connecting dots in old footage, noticing subtle tensions, quiet expressions, and inconsistencies that suddenly painted a picture of inevitable erosion rather than dramatic collapse. Jaguar then dropped the first bombshell, the revelation of a third presence in the home. This wasn't a fleeting affair, a whispered rumor, or a shadow passing through. This was someone fully integrated, functionally living inside the marriage, participating in family routines, photos, and trips. The word Jaguar used carried weight. This woman wasn't merely a girlfriend, she was, in practice, a wife. Fans were left stunned, realizing that what appeared to be scandal was, in fact, a system. Kandi's marriage had become a structured environment where control, appearances, and content production overrode genuine intimacy. Adding another layer of shock, Jaguar revealed the toxic influence of family dynamics. Riley and Mama Joyce's behavior came under intense scrutiny. Riley, hostile towards Todd and Kayla, treated them as enemies, her presence adding friction to the household. Mama Joyce, long before the wedding, labeled Todd an opportunist and pressured Candy to enforce a prenup, subtly dictating the terms of her daughter's marital life. Candy, according to Jaguar, allowed her mother and daughter to interfere in her marriage, creating a complex web of control, negotiation, and strategy that few outsiders had ever glimpsed. Fans gasped at this hidden layer of familial manipulation, realizing the stakes were higher than they ever imagined. Jaguar meticulously unpacked Candy's identity strategy, showing how every aspect of her life had been converted into content. The bedroom, conflicts, intimate moments, and even the presence of the third woman were monetized. Patreon and YouTube weren't just platforms, they were survival tools, vessels for Candy to maintain relevance while selling access to her life piece by piece. Jaguar warned viewers that this marriage collapse wasn't sudden. It was silent, slow, calculated, a gradual erosion that had been in motion for years. Every clip, every post, every strategic public appearance contributed to the unraveling. The live stream painted a chilling portrait of Todd's detachment. He wasn't weak, he wasn't absent, he wasn't failing. He was enduring. Functionally, emotionally, he had already exited the marriage, quietly disengaging from a system that had long stopped being about love. His energy, gestures, and expressions were dissected in real time by viewers who realized that the divorce wasn't explosive, it was inevitable. Jaguar's words forced fans to rethink the timeline, connecting years of subtle signs into a coherent narrative of emotional departure. Every revelation amplified the tension. Jaguar described the marriage as an arena where personal life had become a brand, a performance, and a negotiation. Todd's exit wasn't a public spectacle, it was a quiet surrender. Jaguar's live stream didn't just reveal a story, it rewrote perception. What viewers once considered scandal, entertainment, or gossip was now framed as deliberate exposure, as a calculated unveiling of reality behind the facade. The tone, delivery, and precision made it impossible to dismiss. The audience understood that Candy's real self had been lost somewhere between the desire for relevance and the machinery of content production, while Todd had already stepped aside emotionally, quietly accepting a system he never designed. By the end of the first hour, the conversation online had shifted from who was at fault to what the structure of this life had become. Blogs went silent, media coverage softened, and fans realized that what was unfolding was larger than any single scandal. The marriage wasn't just breaking, it was being redefined in real time. Every glance, every post, every silent interaction carried weight. Jaguar had exposed a house still standing but empty, a marriage still in place but void, a narrative carefully constructed and now dismantled for everyone to see. The shockwaves rippled through social media. Reactions weren't just emotional, they were analytical. Every comment section became a courtroom. Every screenshot was evidence. Every old clip, every pause frame, every subtle inflection became part of the indictment Jaguar was delivering. Fans weren't witnessing entertainment, they were witnessing history being unmasked, the slow, meticulous exposure of a life that had always seemed untouchable. By the time the live stream ended, viewers were left reeling. The public narrative had shifted permanently. Candy Burruss, once a symbol of poise and control, now appeared as someone whose personal life had been carefully curated for consumption, whose marriage had been quietly eroding under the pressure of content, control, and the presence of others. Todd Tucker had become a silent casualty of the system, emotionally removed, functionally detached, a man enduring a collapse he couldn't prevent. Jaguar Wright's revelations weren't just shocking, they were transformative. Fans could no longer view Candy through the same lens. Every interaction, every appearance, every post would now carry the shadow of this exposure. The live stream forced a reckoning with reality. The life behind the fame was structured, monetized, and dissected, and what looked like love and loyalty had already been repurposed as content, control, and survival. And even as silence fell after the broadcast, the echoes remained. There were no statements, no defenses, no denials, only the cold, faceless acknowledgement of truth. The unraveling had begun, and every viewer knew what Jaguar Wright had revealed would continue to ripple, slowly, quietly, but relentlessly, until nothing remained hidden. Fans didn't just watch, they witnessed a legacy being reframed, a marriage being repurposed, and a story of survival, exposure, and emotional collapse unfold in real time. The first part of this revelation set the stage for consequences that would stretch far beyond entertainment, far beyond gossip, and far beyond the carefully controlled narrative Candy Burruss had once commanded. The tension had barely settled from Jaguar Wright's first live stream when whispers of the revelation spread like wildfire. Fans were dissecting every word, replaying every clip, and connecting every subtle gesture from Candy Burruss and Todd Tucker. But part 2 of Jaguar's explosive exposure would take things to a new, darker level. She didn't hesitate to step further inside the walls of a home that had been curated, performed, and monetized for public consumption. Jaguar opened with Candy's calculated manipulation of perception. Every social media post, every YouTube snippet, every Patreon upload wasn't casual. It was carefully timed and orchestrated. She exposed how Candy had learned to control narratives, creating a world where she appeared in command while quietly allowing chaos to thrive behind the scenes. Fans gasped as Jaguar explained the duality of Candy's life, the polished, charismatic persona presented to the public versus the private life, where manipulation, negotiation, and strategic detachment defined every interaction. Nothing was accidental, everything was a move in a long, unseen chess game. Then came Todd Tucker's further unraveling. Jaguar detailed how his emotional withdrawal wasn't a sudden act of rebellion, but a silent, sustained exit. He had been present physically for years, yes, but mentally, emotionally, and strategically, he had already checked out. Observing past interviews, subtle pauses, micro-expressions, all evidence pointed to a man who survived the daily performance rather than engaged in it. Jaguar described how Todd's silence wasn't emptiness, it was endurance. He had learned to navigate a house filled with tension, third-party presences, and the constant gaze of cameras capturing intimate details, turning his own life into a spectacle he no longer controlled. The livestream then turned to the third presence Jaguar had teased earlier. The implications were staggering. This wasn't a fleeting affair, it was a fully integrated entity within the household. Trips, family events, and even casual moments were all structured to accommodate this presence. Jaguar explained to the audience how this third party functionally operated as a wife, sharing responsibilities, creating routines, and performing roles Candy's husband might have been expected to fill emotionally. The audience's disbelief deepened. This wasn't scandal. It was structural exposure, a revelation of hidden mechanics behind a marriage that seemed ordinary on the surface. Jaguar didn't stop there. Riley's hostility and Mama Joyce's manipulations were dissected with surgical precision. Riley had treated Todd and Kayla as adversaries, a subtle campaign that introduced constant tension into the household. Mama Joyce, the ultimate opportunist in Jaguar's account, had applied pressure to Candy long before the wedding. She pushed for a prenup, labeled Todd as opportunistic, and subtly dictated terms of engagement within the marriage. Fans were stunned to realize how much Candy allowed interference from her own family, giving them access to her private life under the guise of trust and filial respect. Jaguar revealed how Candy's consent to this intrusion was not weakness, but a tactical choice to maintain ultimate control over her marriage and public image. Then came the most haunting revelation: Candy's bedroom and intimate life were monetized. Jaguar explained how private moments, conflicts, and intimate disclosures had been transformed into consumable content for platforms like YouTube and Patreon. Each revelation, each personal confession, each casual disclosure in front of the camera was part of a system that sustained Candy's relevance. Fans could hardly process it. What appeared to be natural charisma or openness was, in Jaguar's words, strategic exposure. Every tweet, every clip, every post had been curated to sustain a narrative while turning emotional labor into profit. Jaguar's voice took on a courtroom-like gravity as she detailed the emotional infrastructure of the marriage. Todd's detachment, the third presence, Riley and Mama Joyce's interference, and Candy's calculated content creation were all interconnected. The household operated as a living experiment in control, surveillance, and strategic exposure. Every small action became evidence, every silence became testimony. The audience began to see patterns that had previously gone unnoticed: subtle tensions in photos, slight hesitations in interviews, the quiet dominance of Candy's personality over both family and spouse. Jaguar's intensity left no room for denial. Every revelation carried weight, every detail forced recognition. The livestream shifted toward consequences. Fans watched as Jaguar outlined the slow erosion of emotional connection. This wasn't a dramatic confrontation or explosive argument. It was a methodical process of disengagement. Todd's emotional withdrawal, Candy's monetization of intimacy, and the third presence's integration created an ecosystem where the marriage's collapse was inevitable. Jaguar emphasized that the breakup wouldn't be sudden. It was a silent, calculated implosion. Fans could see, through analysis of past behaviors and subtle signals, how the trajectory had been set years in advance. Jaguar's revelations then tackled the public perception machine. Candy's social media silence, strategic media appearances, and controlled narrative were all tools to maintain appearances while the underlying dynamics continued to shift. The audience realized that what seemed like normal PR management was in fact a calculated strategy to manipulate perception, hide dysfunction, and maintain influence. Jaguar painted a stark picture of a household functioning under layers of control, where reality and performance were inseparable, and where manipulation had become a daily practice. The emotional weight of Jaguar's live stream was palpable. Fans commented, shared, and dissected every frame, every word, and every clip she revealed. They were not witnessing gossip. They were witnessing exposure, reconstruction, and revelation. Every element of Candy's life had been recontextualized. Private moments became evidence, family interactions became testimony, and Todd's quiet endurance became a symbol of survival in a house designed for performance rather than intimacy. Jaguar's words transformed the perception of the marriage into something raw, complex, and undeniably tragic. The live stream then highlighted the subtle but devastating role of control and consent. Candy's choices, allowing Riley and Mama Joyce access, structuring her life around content, integrating a third presence, were not passive. Jaguar described them as deliberate acts of strategy. Every boundary she allowed to be crossed, every interaction she orchestrated, and every intimate moment she shared became part of a larger system that maintained power, influence, and relevance. Fans were shocked to see how consent and control had been weaponized inside a household that outwardly appeared normal. As Jaguar wrapped the live stream, she returned to the theme of inevitability. The silent collapse of Candy and Todd's marriage was not a fleeting scandal or a sudden eruption. It was a process meticulously revealed, structured, and executed over years. Jaguar opened this third segment by revisiting the marriage's core, the silent erosion. Todd Tucker's emotional detachment, previously observed but barely understood, was dissected with precision. He had survived years in a home that functioned as both performance stage and tactical chessboard. Every pause, every micro-expression, every hesitation in interactions with Candy revealed a man quietly negotiating his own survival. Jaguar emphasized that Todd's endurance was not weakness, but calculated self-preservation. Every revelation, every subtle clue, every piece of exposed truth was now etched in the audience's consciousness. Jaguar Wright had not merely reported gossip, she had reconstructed a household, dismantled facades, and revealed the tragic, complex, and shocking reality behind a marriage that had long been hidden behind performance, control, and calculated exposure. The story would linger, analyzed, dissected, and debated, leaving an indelible mark on the way fans perceived celebrity, marriage, and the intricate layers of identity and survival. The third part of Jaguar Wright's Expose solidified the saga, a marriage orchestrated for content, a household structured around endurance and manipulation, and a family enmeshed in control dynamics. Todd's silent withdrawal, Candy's strategic exposure, and the integration of third-party elements painted a portrait of a calculated collapse, a silent implosion, and a tragedy now fully revealed for public observation. Fans were left in stunned disbelief, knowing that what they had witnessed was not just gossip, it was an emotionally intense, viral-level, courtroom-style revelation of calculated strategy, manipulation, and survival at its most raw. The live stream ended, but the conversation exploded. Every frame, every gesture, and every word shared by Jaguar would continue to reverberate across social media, forums, and discussion boards. The exposure had changed the narrative forever. Candy Burruss, Todd Tucker, and their household would never be seen the same way again. The shock, the tragedy, and the intensity of what had been revealed ensured that this story would remain viral, emotionally resonant, and unforgettable. Fans walked away realizing the full scope. This was not entertainment. This was an examination of human behavior under the pressures of performance, identity, and strategic manipulation. Jaguar Wright had stripped away the illusion, exposing the emotional, social, and functional collapse that had been meticulously hidden. It was raw, tragic, and devastating, and the world had finally seen it in full. The truth isn't coming slowly anymore. It's hitting like a freight train. Every secret, every manipulation, every silent betrayal that Jaguar Wright revealed is now laid bare for the world to see. Candy Burruss' carefully curated image, Todd Tucker's quiet endurance, the third presence functioning as a hidden domestic partner, Riley and Mama Joyce's calculated interference, all of it colliding in a storm that no one saw coming. The marriage, once polished and untouchable on the surface, is now exposed as a meticulously structured performance where survival, control, and public perception were the true stakes. Audiences are left gasping, realizing this wasn't a simple scandal. It was a calculated erosion, a slow collapse engineered in plain sight. Every post, every social media quiet, every subtle public gesture was part of a narrative built to sustain power, relevance, and identity. Todd's emotional withdrawal wasn't weakness, it was quiet survival. Candy's intimate moments and private life weren't leaks. They were monetized, weaponized, and structured for influence. The third presence wasn't a fling, it was embedded into the household as a functional reality, performing roles and maintaining a system that most fans never imagined existed. Now the layers of manipulation, control, and silent negotiation are undeniable. Jaguar's Expose forces the world to confront the raw, tragic complexity of a marriage disguised as normal, a household hidden behind curated smiles and public appearances. The audience is now left with the shocking clarity that what seemed like ordinary celebrity drama was actually a live documentation of strategy, endurance, and emotional warfare. This story doesn't end with gossip. It ends with the haunting realization that private lives can be weaponized, identities monetized, and relationships manipulated for survival and spectacle. The revelations will echo, the discussions will rage, and the fallout will continue. Fans are forced to reckon with a reality far darker than entertainment, a reality where control, betrayal, and calculated exposure define everything. The exposure